If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. Today I'm going to sew along with you the Ceyhla shoulder bag by Sewing Arts Handmade. Okay, this bag is amazing. That's all I can say. Thank you so much, Handmade, for allowing me to make this tutorial. I am so glad I did. I have no words. Let me show you some of the amazing features of this bag. Like, definitely check out this incredibly amazing, classy shape. It features these overlays on the front and back, which also work as our handle connectors. They have a zipper pocket on the front and back as well. It has a flip lock closure. You can see there. So when you flip that up, it has everything cinched in on the sides with these snaps. But look how big and wide this opens up. Like, seriously, I have two slip pockets there and a zipper pocket on the other side. I have no words. An oval bottom with purse feet. Do not be scared of this oval bottom. I am so happy that Amana instructions on how to do the oval bottom and how to do the inside pockets and everything are so in line with how I do them. So it was super easy to teach how to do this. This pattern actually is a pretty quick sew. It comes together so incredibly fast. I think the thing that took me the longest was probably the edge painting, but again, edge painting is completely optional. You do not need to do edge painting, but I am an edge painting girl. I just love it. Okay, let's see. Materials I use in this bag. My zippers and zipper pulls are from Blue Cala. All of my hardware is from Emmeline bags. This amazing suede-like faux leather is from Galaxy Customs. This is the Leopard Luxe line at Galaxy Customs. And all my black vinyl there is also the Luxe line at Galaxy Customs. I just can't tell you how soft this vinyl is. It just, it was perfect for this bag. My lining, I don't remember what it's called, but in my cutting video, I do tell you what it's called. So make sure you check out the cutting video if you need to know what that is. I did buy it at Dress Sew. What else? Now in this bag, I went rogue with the interfacing. If you're using a stiffer vinyl, you probably don't even have to interface it. For softer vinyls or cottons, I think she says to use fleece in it. I used foam. I'm a foam girl and I just love the structure that the foam gave. So in this video, I actually show you how to cut the foam out of the corners to make that little less bulky in some of those corners if you decide to use foam. But seriously, look how amazing the structure is with that foam. Yeah, and for my cotton pieces, I actually interface them with EB Fuse Medium. That is it's from Emmeline bags. It's a woven interfacing similar to a Pelon 809, but woven. So it is so much better. It doesn't wrinkle. It doesn't pull away when you turn it or whatever. I wanted to give my lining for this one kind of like a canvas feel. So I find when I use EB Fuse Medium that it turns my cotton pieces into almost like a canvas weight, which I just absolutely love. Otherwise, I would have used EB Fuse Lite, which is similar to an SF101. I do have a piece of Decavol Heavy down in the bottom. There is some Decavol Light pieces in the connector pieces here behind, just to give it a little bit more strength where our rectangular rings go in. I use Giardini Edgepaint for all of my raw edges. I used 3 layers of base coat, 1 layer of color, and a layer of protecting gloss. And seriously, can you see? I don't know if it can focus. It just adds a certain something to this with that little bit of a glossy shine all around these raw edges. So on that note, the overlays are raw edges. The flap, I did raw edge, but she also has instructions in it on how to do the flap turned if you wanted to use cotton. I show you in this how to do it with vinyls and raw edge. What else? Honestly, the hardest part of this bag was probably installing this part of this flip block, but it really wasn't bad. We do that close to the very end of making the bag, and you will see why. It's to guarantee that you get that perfect placement for your lock. There are no measurements really where you're going to be putting your flip lock on the flap or on the bag, mainly because everybody's flip flocks are different. So you kind of use your eye to figure that out, make it nice and centered, and Banna's direction on how to make it so they match up perfectly is absolutely perfect in the pattern. The pattern is super easy to follow, super easy to read. I 100% am a fan. Definitely won't be my last sewing arts pattern I do. This one was my first, loved it. It was my first time making this bag, so you get to enjoy all of the newbie stuff with me. Anyways, what else? I think that is it. How about we get to making this bag?
So we're going to need some rivets, number 5 zipper tape, some snaps, strap ends, 4 rectangular rings, 3 zipper pulls, a flip lock, 4 purse feet. Okay, so you're going to need your main lining pieces, your slip pocket piece, your 6 zipper pocket lining pieces, your flap pieces, your main flap piece backed with some Decavol heavy outside of the seam allowances, your base pieces lining and exterior, your exterior backed with Decavol heavy outside of the seam allowances, your front to back main panels, 2 sets of side panels mirrored to one another, your 2 strap pieces, your slip pocket overlay, your front and back zipper pocket overlay connector pieces, as well as a zipper overlay piece for your lining, and some foam. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my handles off camera. If you need a class for that, that's down below in the description. Okay, so I have drawn out and cut out one of my flap pieces here, and I have already backed it with Decavol heavy outside of the seam allowances. Use a little bit of double-sided tape and that square scrap piece of vinyl, putting these wrong sides together, and we're going to stitch around there with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once that's done, you're going to go ahead and trim this up within 1/8 inch of that 1/4 inch seam allowance. And what this is going to do is going to give us a perfect even edge for edge painting this flap. Again, there are instructions on how to do this turned rather than raw. If you prefer, just make sure you follow the pattern for how to do that. This is my preferred method of doing this, and having these 2 layers gives such a great edge for edge painting. Okay, so I'm going to take that piece, my 3 overlay pieces, anywhere where there's raw edge, and I'm going to edge paint those using 3 base coat, 1 color, 1 protecting gloss. I do have a class for that down in the description. Okay, so on the back of our connectors, you're going to want to go and fuse those scraps Decavol heavy for added strength. And now we're going to place that fancy connector overlays. So on either our front or our back, it doesn't matter which, we're going to put some double-sided tape on the outside of our rectangle we have cut out. Remove the top piece. You're going to line up the open rectangles of the overlay and that. Once you have the top done, go ahead, remove the paper from the bottom and stick the other in place like so. And I'm just going to use a little bit more double-sided tape to put on the end of the connectors, just so it'll stay in place when we go to put our rectangle rings on. So on these connectors, you're going to slide your rectangle pieces. Actually, you're going to measure down as per the pattern. I believe it was about 1 3/4 inch down. And that is going to give you an idea of where our rectangular rings are going to sit. So go ahead, put your rectangular rings on down to that line, fold it under wrong sides together, and I'm just going to use that little bit of double-sided tape to hold this in place underneath, like so. So you will do that for all 4. These should measure down as per the pattern measurements where they sit, and we're going to go ahead and top stitch all the way around these to hold this in place. Now I'm going to switch into my left zipper foot here. This is going to enable me to get nice and close to my rectangular rings without running over the hardware too much. We want to get as close as we can to those rectangular rings to ensure that we have that stability. So I'm going to do my trick of pulling my threads long. I'm not going to backstitch because I don't want that buildup of threads. You're definitely able to backstitch if you prefer, but I like to pull mine long. I'm going to go very slow, make sure my tension is good. And you will see me hand cranking around these curves a lot. I am super finicky when it comes to this top stitch. I want it to be as perfect as it possibly can. And you're going to see how good that left zipper foot, see how my walking foot comes right up against my hardware, which is what we want. When we turn here, you want to put a scrap piece of vinyl underneath your walking foot just to make sure you're not eating up your vinyl and protecting that hardware, and continue with your top stitch around. Okay, once I reach this opposite side, I want to go to my starting stitches and yank on my bobbin thread to pull that top thread through, and then continue the rest of the way around. Okay, as we come to the end of our top stitching, we want to make sure that that needle lands in that starting hole from our first stitch. Hold on to your threads, pull them along. That way you can keep track of which one is your bobbin thread. Give it a little yank to pull through that top thread, and then tie these 4 strands off in 3 or 4 knots. That is all done. Now you can go ahead and install your lining pieces into all those overlay pieces. I have a class on how to do zipper overlay pocket pieces down below in the description. For the exterior pieces, make sure you close them up. We do not need to leave any openings in the bottom. Okay, now we want to do our side pieces. So you're going to lay them out like this, the 2 of the mirrored pieces. The wider side should be at the top, and line the diagonal edges up with one of the main panel pieces. Clip them in place. You'll see there will be a little bit of a hangover or overhang, not a hangover. That is what we want. That's going to make it so we have a nice clean line once we sew these together. So do the same on the opposite side. You will do the same with the back piece as well. Once we have this clipped into place, we're going to go ahead and sew this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. That's done. Now we want to do our top stitching. So you want to make sure your seam is pointing towards the side panels. Then we're going to top stitch through the side panels for all 4 of those side pieces. What those look like done, you can go ahead and you can set these aside for now. So now we're going to work on our bottom purse feet placement. So I've gone and punched holes in the pattern pieces where the purse feet placement is. I'm just going to mark on the wrong side of my exterior bottom piece where these purse feet will go, and then you'll go ahead and install your purse feet as per your manufacturer's instructions in those 4 places. If you need a class on how to do that, I do have that down below in the description. I also like to put some duct tape on the back. So now what we're going to do is take those 3 exterior pieces we finished and back them with some sew-in foam or your chosen interfacing. Okay, so a little trick to keep the bulk out of the seam allowances is I actually should have done it with all 4 corners, but here I'm showing you how to do it with the top 2 corners. I'm just cutting out about a 1/2 inch from the top and the bottom of the foam, just to remove some of that bulk. And I also like to pull my pocket piece to the back. So I'm just cutting into the back foam where my pocket piece is, kind of feeling it. And then I'll pull that lining pocket piece up and through. And what this is going to do is just give some cushioning in that pocket. So when you have some stuff in those front and back pockets, it's not kind of poking through the front of the bag and kind of wearing away at that exterior piece. It'll wear away at the foam piece. So it's nice and cushiony like so. Okay, once that's done, we are going to put in our snaps. Like, I just got these snaps from Amazon. I do them by hand. So on one exterior piece, you're going to do both female snaps, and on the other exterior piece, you're going to do both male snaps. Very important. We're going to measure in 2 inches down and 1 3/4 inches in. Double check my measurements in case I'm wrong. Make a small mark and then go ahead and install those where they need to go. So that is done. I've backed in the post some deckable heavy scraps just for added strength. So now on our flat piece, we want to put in our female side of our turn lock. So this is where you are going to eyeball it and try to get it nice and centered. All of these are always different widths and everything. So once you've got it all figured out where you want to put it, where it's nice and centered and where it looks really, really good, you will take a marking pen and just mark that out. So once you have that marked out, I like to just do these manual punches. I got these off of Amazon. I look for one of my punches that's about the same shape. I put it over top of the marks that I drew, and then I go ahead and I bang it with my mallet. Once you've done that, you can see how nice that goes through, nice shape, and it fits perfectly. Okay, so for my screws, I like to put a little bit of Loctite on them. That just helps glue those screws in place so they won't come off. Once these are in, they are in those. So make sure you have it nice and straight and screwed in, because once this dries, you're not going to be able to get those screws out again. So that's what that flap looks like, all complete. The male side, we're going to go ahead, put that aside until the end of the video where we will install it then. Okay, so now we're going to take our back panel and our flap on our flap piece, kind of from where those corners are on the bottom side opposite the turn lock hole. We want to measure up 2 inches and do 2 little marks on the side with some chalk. Now flip this so it's the wrong side up now, and we're going to put some double-sided tape just kind of along in between those marks. And then with that tape, we're going to use that to help us put it in place on our back panel. This is our back panel we're working with right now. And we want to kind of place it in between our connector pieces. Actually, first, I always forget to find my top and bottom centers. Always important to know where your top and bottom centers are. So I'm going to go ahead and just clip those right now. And then take my flap, and we're kind of going to put it in between the connectors, about 1/4 inch or so away from that overlay piece. And stick it down with the tape. Make sure your placement looks good, as this is a real focal feature of this bag, so you want it to be as perfect as you possibly can. And then we're going to go in and stitch this in place across that mark, and then 1/4 inch away from the edges. So about 1/8 inch away from our original top stitching from when we made our flap. So I am actually going to go ahead and do a little bit of a back stitch here. That will be covered up by a rivet, so it won't really be seen, and then work my way all the way around the curve within 1/8 of an inch of that already top stitch seam, or 1/4 of an inch away from the edges all the way to the opposite 2-inch mark. So that's all done. You can see that's all stitched in place nicely. And now we're going to put our rivet placement. So I like to just draw them on. I'm just using my Tandy leather pen. So I'm going to put 2 in the flap there. I only mark 1 here, but I end up going in and doing 2 at each of the connectors. And I also going to put my nameplate. Just make sure you lift your lining of your zipper pocket out of the way when you install that nameplate. So there's all my rivets installed. There's my nameplate installed, and I didn't go through my lining piece, which is good. Now we're going to take these, put them right sides together, and snap our snaps together, and then line up the left and right sides and clip them in place. Once we have them clipped, we're going to go ahead and sew down those sides. That's done. This is a really handy tip that Edmana has in the pattern. So we're going to cut about a 1/2 inch down from each of these corners, not quite to where our seam stitch line was, and we're going to just open up the seams at that point. This is really going to help reduce that bulk, especially where we've cut out that foam in those corners. Again, to do this again, I would have cut the foam out of all 4 corners and done this trick, and it just really helps, especially when we go to top stitch there. If you are on my industrial machine would have been okay with it, but to reduce bulk for those machines that are sensitive to those bulks, especially when using foam. So go ahead and baste all of those seams, 4 seams open with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. To sewing on that oval bottom. Do not be scared of this. This is the perfect way to do it. It is so easy. So just before, on the back side of our exterior piece, just before it goes curvy, we're going to make some marks and some lines. And those are going to be stop and start lines. Start lines. Oh my gosh, that's hard to say. Match up your center on the bottom. So I've marked all the centers of my bottom piece, the short sides and the long sides, but we're just going to go right sides together of the bottom of the bag, and just for now sew in between those lines on that one side. That side's done. We're going to do the opposite with the straight side, the other straight side, again matching up that center, and then just sewing in between those lines before the curvy parts. Have those two straight edges sewn in place. You're going to see how perfectly the curvy part kind of goes in. Match up your center with that open seam, and then clip these curvy sides in place, and look how perfect they fit in there. And it's not going to shift because we have already, or it's not going to shift much because we've already secured our straight edges. So you're going to go ahead and clip both of these curvy sides, start and stop your stitches where we start and stopped the straight edges, and sew these curved sides in nice. So this is what that looks like done. Now you're going to see I have a little bit of slippage there, but not much. I'm just going to go ahead and trim up that little excess off. It's not going to make a difference. And then you can go ahead and you can turn your exterior right side out. Massage out those seams really good. I'm just going to do my snaps just to kind of get an idea of how everything's going together. Kind of punch out those sides a little bit. This will get memory once it's snapped together later on. And that's our exterior complete. She looks good. Now we're going to work on our lining. I've already went ahead and I done my lining pockets. I left my zipper pocket open. I do have classes on how I do them down below in the description. And we're going to do this in almost the same fashion that we did with the exterior. Take our main lining pieces and we're going to sew down each of these sides with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so we aren't putting the bottom on at this point. That will be later. We're going to take our lining right side out and our exterior, or lining wrong side out, exterior right side out. We're going to stuff the exterior into our lining like so. Make sure your flap is out of the way. Make sure you have your zipper pocket on the lining position to where you like it to be. I like mine to be at the back of the bag. We're going to match up those centers on the lining pieces and the exterior pieces first of the main panels. That's one side done. Do the same on the opposite side, securing with 2 or 3 clips. And then do the same with the side centers. Match up that center seam with our side seam of the exterior. Couple clips. Same with the opposite side. And then in between those quarter sections, go ahead and evenly distribute that fabric all the way around, securing with clips. As you can see, I am not a stranger to clips. I want everything to stay in place. Now we're going to go ahead. If you're doing this from a flatbed, you can sew from the inside of the bag. I'm doing this on my cylinder arm, so I'm doing it from the outside of the bag. You would do this similar positioning on a free arm if you have that. And we're going to sew all the way around this top with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. This is what it looks like when that's done. Make sure everything was caught, and if it looks good, go ahead and turn it right side out through that entire opening in the bottom of the lining. This makes turning so easy when you do it this way. Give your lining a tug and make sure everything was caught and there are no raw edges showing. Once that's done, go ahead and stuff the lining into the bag. And then we're going to work on the placement of our male side of our flip block here. So I've massaged the seams down, and I'm going to match just where my side seams are, because we want to make sure it's nice and centered. So where my side my side panel seams match up, and just hold it with some clips. And I'm going to take my flap and I'm going to fold it over and see where I want the placement to be. It's about 1/4 of an inch or so away from the overlay, similar to what the back was, but you want to make sure it's going to be able to open and close with the bag being full. Once you have it where you think it's going to be great, I'm just going to go ahead and right in the center of that male lock, I'm going to do a little dot with my pen, right in the center there. And that is going to be where I'm going to install the male side of my flip block. So once you have that marked, you'll want to pull the lining out of the way because you don't want to cut through your lining, and you're going to go ahead and cut through the exterior and install that male part of the lock. So that's all done here. You can see it. I have it backed with some Duckable Heavy, and I'm putting some duct tape over the prongs just for extra protection. Then go ahead and stuff your lining in. Massage your seam all the way around. Make sure your flap matches up, which it does. And we're going to prepare this top for top stitching. So roll those seams in between your fingers, nice and tight, and secure them with clips all the way around. Again, I am no stranger to clips, but we're going to go ahead and we are going to top stitch all the way around with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once the top stitching is all done, make sure everything snaps into place before we seal up this bottom. We want to make sure it all looks good and we don't have to correct anything before we finish this bag up. If it all looks good, what we want to do is open up that zipper pocket, pull out the zipper pocket lining, and through the opening in that zipper pocket, pull the entire lining bottom through that pocket. And we are going to sew on our bottom in the exact same fashion that we sewed it on the exterior, but we are doing it through this zipper pocket. This is so easy to do, and just makes turning in the bag so much better to do that. So again, mark your 4 centers of your lining bottom piece, the short sides and the long sides. And then you're going to sew one straight side, and then you're going to sew the other straight side, and then you are going to sew the curvy sides exactly like we did with the exterior. That's done easy peasy. Go ahead and stuff that lining back in through that zipper pocket. Take a quick look to make sure there's no holes, and there isn't. And then you can go ahead and fold in the raw edges of that zipper pocket under like so by about 1/4 inch or so with clips in place, and then top stitch that shut with 1/8 inch seam allowance. That's all done. Go ahead, stuff your lining pocket back inside like so. Press the lining out nicely. Make sure it's nice and tight in the bottom, which mine is. Looks good. Snap up your snaps. Make sure everything closes properly. Again, this will get some memory as it is snapped together. Punch out those bottom sides to give it that classic shape. And then all you have left to do is to go ahead and to put on your straps, which I am going to rivet mine on. So here mine is with my straps riveted on. She looks magnificent. I'm sure yours does as well. I just absolutely adore this pattern. Give yourself a pat on the back. You've done an awesome job. She was a quick sew. And we're done.
All right, that's it. That's all. What a fun make, hey? Like, so amazing. Thank you again, Edmana, for allowing me to do this tutorial. Now, if you did like this tutorial, please do give me a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. If you'd like to support my channel further, you could definitely buy me a coffee. That's linked down below. And make sure you check out my membership site. There may be something there that calls to you. And I will catch you guys on the next tutorial. Bye!